the two of you have been able to embark on this journey of claiming your identity and owning it and being like, it doesn't matter what other people are saying, this is who I am. How were you able to embark on that journey? What was it that triggered that shift for you? Like, how did you go about it? Because I think that that's such a powerful tool and such a powerful thing to have. And if you're both able to share your experience with that, that would be great, I think.
It took as I talked about with being gay, I had a huge identity crisis. And because of, again, all the inputs that were coming in, and we think about how our brains actually have developed, I mean, 2000 years ago, like how much input did we really have from outside people? It was just the people in our village,
Hmm.
and that's about it. Whatever's happening across the world has no impact on you. And like that's where our brains were like that's what our brains were more built for. And now, because we have all of these different inputs coming in from parents, from friends, from TV and social media and games and wherever else, that are all telling us like this is what our world should be, this is how people should act. Um, it makes it so that it's impossible to come up with your own identity because you're so busy on everybody else's inputs. And we as people are social creatures. We thrive we survived back in the day because we were in tribes, because we were in groups, and we were smart together. And so it's important as a social creature to fit in with your peers. And when your peers are not anymore just the immediate 10, 20, however many people that are in front of you, but it's the billions of people across the world because that's who we have access to now. We struggle to come up with the identity that actually matches who we were born to be,
And
because
who we want to be.
and who we want to be.
Yeah.
um, and it culminated for me when I was having everybody's inputs into my identity and believing that was who I was, and then trying so hard to go against what I really felt like I should be doing. But on the surface level, it felt right for me to go to school, to be an engineer, and to do whatever other things that other people were expecting of me. And then I just got so unhappy that it made it so that I had to make that choice, as I talked about last time. And when I decided finally to get help and start going in a different direction, it really wasn't until I found the environment that I felt safe to be able to really
Mm.
explore that things actually changed. Like I went to therapy, it didn't feel super safe. I went
Interesting.
to yeah, I think it very heavily depends on your therapist
Yes.
and relationship you have with them and how they connect with you. And even a good therapist for some people might not be a good therapist for other people. And the people that you're surrounding yourself with. The way I view it is your people talk about like you can overcome any how if you have a big enough why. And for me, like eventually my why became like I was going down a really dark path, so I had to figure out a different how. But the other things I think factor into that are your environment, and that is the people that you surround yourself with. That is the food that you eat. That is all these different things that are you are in control of, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that until you realize it.
Mhm.
And then also your mental fortitude. And when you have strong mental fortitude and when you have a good environment, you don't actually need a strong why to make those changes. Like we talked about earlier, if your environment is positive and it's really open, then I'm going to talk to you about whatever problems I have because like it feels like a safe place to do that. But for a lot of people, their environment doesn't support that, and it's the opposite. It actually deters from that, and then nobody's trained on how to have mental fortitude. Like there's no class on it. There's no manual for the brain, and because of that, until we go to places where we can find that for ourselves, like for us, it was Tony Robbins. Um, it's super difficult. And so you have to
Yeah.
have a super strong why, like a gay person has to break because they've experienced so much pain from not having a relationship, for them to actually finally come out, unless there is a great environment for them to do that. And or they have a strong mental fortitude from understandings of how the mind works. All that coming to the sense of, really, for me, what really made the changes was my environment, the people I chose to surround myself with, and then also the learning of the mental fortitude, the learning why my brain is acting the way that it is, realizing that like it was meant for a life that we had hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago, and not meant for today's day and age. And now, and being grateful for like the situation that we're in, and for the brain that we have, and being able to work on that. And
Yeah.
now I feel like I have, and I was just talking about this earlier, I feel like I have so much control over whatever people's inputs are. Like when my soccer players would say, "Oh, don't be gay," or like that's so gay, or whatever. That was never a input on me of like, that was an input on me. And I could have allowed that to make me feel really bad about myself, and feel like all these people just wouldn't accept me, even though all the stuff that I'm giving for them. But in reality, like I knew that they didn't know. And if they did know, the majority of them would actually be totally supportive of it. And this was evidenced at GYLS when when my kids, like that's something I didn't want to tell them in the beginning, and I still don't really want to if I have the opportunity to, because a lot of kids in high school have the perceptions about it. And once I built the relationship with them, and then eventually told them that I was gay, but they realized that like, hey, this guy's just a cool person. It doesn't matter who he's like, he's gay or whatever. They were almost overly accepting. To the point that I was like, okay, we gotta push this back a second here, because you're asking too many questions, and I this is not the space for this. So yeah, it really comes down to those three things for me, which is like your why. But you don't need a strong why if there's a good environment in place, and parents have the opportunity to set that environment up, as well as helping their kid to learn how, like, why their brain does the thing that it does, why they're having social anxiety. Well, that's there because if you don't fit in with a group, your brain is trained to be scared of that. And but in reality, it's not actually going to get you killed. It's totally okay. There is not a saber-toothed tiger around the corner that's going to get you. Although things like the next math test, or things like what Jenny's going to think of me in school, are things that now our brain comes up with as the saber-toothed tiger, because there is no actual saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's not necessarily true.
yeah, exactly.
In fact, most of the time, it isn't.
Exactly. But our brain is there, and anxiety is there to protect us, to create the fear, so that we think of all of these potential bad possibilities, so that we can try to avoid those. But in reality, it ends up nowadays, because there's so many inputs to come in, it ends up being a thing that we just don't know how to process, and then we shut down.
So you're saying your part of your journey was becoming aware of that, because most people, I don't think, are aware of that. You know, this is just me, right? This is just me. I have these thoughts all the time. I have these fears. It's just me. But when you start to learn that, like you said, about the brain and how things work, and how it is not you, it is this weird other brain in your head that's just going, ah. So, and then how to understand how to manage that by different thoughts, different behaviors, different environments, different, all those things, right? Which you learned through Tony Robbins, and so did I, and now many others. But yes.
Well, learning the mental fortitude of being able to like change the output that you take from any input, and really just attaching the meaning that you want to it, attaching empowering meanings to whatever things are happening versus disempowering meanings, which many of us are defaulted to do. That is what started the change. And then now, it wasn't actually until this past year, right before meeting Nick, and being able to, and this is what I think has made this work so well, is because I had that mental fortitude. And then I was deciding that, okay, now I need to change my environment. I need to be able to surround myself with people that also feel the same way, or at least want to grow in the same direction, so that we're pushed towards that. Because when your environment is telling you so many different things of negative beliefs, it's that much more difficult to influence yourself in a positive way. But now we're surrounded with people that are amazing. We're surrounded with each other, and we have similar language around that. And because of our environment, people, the things that we choose to consume, both in media and like our food, even, that is what has made it so that like every day now, and Nick has been experiencing this, especially recently. Like I've been waking up so just like happy and grateful for life, and appreciating every single thing as opposed to having expectations as to how things should be.
Excellent. Wow.
Love that.
That was awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Nick, I don't know how you're gonna top that one. That's
Oh, I
pretty
know.
good.
I know. It's just amazing. Well, yeah, my journey it started with, like Chris said, just a ton of pain. And that's not necessary, but it was a ton of pain, and something had to happen. I was crying
An
myself
amount
to sleep.
pain works in a good way many times. It's the
Yeah,
only thing that it's either pain or pleasure, right? And pain is way worse to get us to do
yeah,
something. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So, yeah, I had a ton of pain. Didn't know who I was. I felt very alone, like nobody really understood me, and it was in a really weird place. Felt very lost, crying myself to sleep every night. And one day I had too much, and I think it was the night before, I was walking to a friend's house and thought what it would be like to just jump in front of the cars. And so that next day I was like, okay, this is enough. Something has to change. Um, I feel so alone. I need to open up. I need to connect with somebody. Um, and the biggest thing to do that on a truly deep level and actually let them in was to come out to them.
Mm-hmm.
But doing that in person or over the phone or anything was too terrifying. So I found the one cousin who I knew was a huge advocate for that, and I sent her a big long text. And she was fantastic about it and really supportive. And I later learned that that was National Coming Out Day, and I didn't know it at the time. Um,
I didn't know there
Funny,
was a
right?
day.
Yeah, yeah. And later that day, and then the days following, I came out to more and more people, which was like a good year after I brought a guy to a family Christmas party unannounced. So I had already came out in that way, didn't think it was necessary to come out, and then found myself, like Chris says, in college in an environment where I was came off very straight, and so nobody knew. And the only way for people to know, because nobody else there knew, there was no one to kind of go and say, oh, hey, he's gay, so I had to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And the opportunities arise when someone says something homophobic, or when someone uh, says, oh, dude, look at that girl, or whatever. And it's not the easiest thing to do. So, anyways, someone saw me kissing someone and then told everyone, and I became the gay Nick. Um, and not in a nice way, I don't think.
Yeah, you get the
I don't think,
now it's the opposite now, right?
yeah, yeah,
Very fearful.
right, yeah. Most people didn't mean any harm by it, but then there were other people that would come up to me and say, "Oh, can I talk to you? I want to come out, but I don't want to be the gay so and so like you." And it was funny.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I did that, felt a whole lot better, felt a lot more ability to really connect with people. And then I started noticing how I have had such a fear of intimacy, and how my parents, I was like, where did I get that from? Where did I learn that? And I figured out I was modeling my parents.
Mm.
Which was difficult to find out because it's not obvious, and they don't avoid emotional intimacy and emotional connection in every situation. It's just a very select few. And for some reason, I picked up on that and started modeling that, and that became a pattern. So my parents were, I mean, they were great. They asked me if I was. They told me it's okay if I was. When I was 12, my mom told me my uncle was gay, and she was like, it's like straight and gay. It's just like it's like an eye color. It does, she literally said that it doesn't matter. And I was the one who thought of him differently initially.
Mm,
Um, and isn't that interesting? And
yeah.
it's like, where did that come from? Because that's not me.
Mm.
Uh, and I think it's important for everyone to identify their own beliefs and patterns, not just to acknowledge them. Acknowledge them without judging yourself is a huge thing. And then figuring out like where it came from. Because when you identify, oh, this came from this other person, and looking back, that was kind of silly. That's a big help. I also did a ton of research on homosexuality and even gender and all kinds of things. And off the top of my head, I don't have any way of citing any of this, but a lot of findings are coming down to the fact that there are so many things that happen before your birth and after your birth,
Hmm.
and so many different things. And the combination of them creates you, and it has influence on your sexuality before and a little bit apparently after you're born. And that's why I believe in something called the Kinsey scale, which is a theory that sexuality is a scale. It's not black or white. You're not gay, straight, or bi. It's any degree in between. It's many shades of gray. And just like Chris said, the environment, the society that we built for ourselves, the religions, TV, everything. Um, it's interesting how through osmosis we learn and pick up on all these different things. And if we really observe that and truly don't judge ourselves, I think a surprisingly large amount of the population will realize that there are some kind of shade of gray,
Hmm.
um, and that it's entirely natural, just like the whole gender thing. There are three main pieces of your development that result in your gender. And one of them is physical. The other two happen before the physical one happens, and they are not physical. It's nothing you can see.
Hmm.
It's something that they know and that they can feel, and it's mental. Uh, and you can piece together all of the people who are confused in that way from that. But yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I
then
think
sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say I think that you've been saying a lot too how over time, like you just mentioned about judging yourself and being able to let go of that has allowed you to
Mhm.
be able to express yourself in different in like the way that you want to, especially when letting go of the judgments and not intentional judgments of parents. And like what you mentioned, attaching achievement to
Yeah.
success and or
Yeah.
like to self-worth,
Mhm.
and that being a thing that like parents have taught. And maybe they meant that on purpose, and maybe that was through an intent, like oh, because yeah, of course, like achievement is a thing that people might want to strive for, and when your whole self-worth gets attached to it,
Right.
then it becomes a problem.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah. And we were listening to a video on Dr. K that talked a bit about that too. It's people who are unfulfilled in their life and they look to all these external circumstances. And you're giving power. When you do that, you give power to what's outside of you to feel a certain way, to feel fulfilled and
Hmm.
happy.
Hmm.
And that's insane when you think
Yeah.
about it. So what has happened is we built a society environment where people lean on their career to feel to feel fulfilled. And the world that we've built is our career kind of has this, in Dr. K's words, a monopoly on achievement for a lot of people. Some people find it in having a relationship, having kids, changing the world in some way, some kind of mission, but it's all like it's this achievement. And it comes back to like your kid needs to know that they're enough just how they are, and that they are worthy of everything and of your love as a parent, as their parent, without having to achieve anything.
Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, there was an app, oh, I forget the app, but it was an app for ADHD, and it had a quote, Inflow is what it was called, and it had a quote, and it said, "If you never achieved anything else for the rest of your life, you would still be worthy of all the love that you want."
Mm,
And um,
love that.
and it was like, you don't believe that, do you? You need to let that sink in. And it continued, and it was really good because it was a great way to remind you, hey, yeah, it feels really good to achieve. And yes, that imprints on us on what we believe about ourselves, our confidence, our identity. Um, and through our lives, as we get patted on the back and get shown love or positive judgmental feedback from our parents and peers about achieving, we do connect our worth to that.
Mhm.
And it's amazing that now I've done some pretty amazing things in my life to be honest. And I have a pretty cool degree, and I can do some cool things, and I feel like I am walking through mud trying to do the simplest things sometimes lately, because I've noticed how much of my worth is attached to that. It's a double-edged sword. It's
Yeah.
Mm.
The
when
end
I
goal.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
all the end goal. What about the journey?
Right. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
So it's
we get
detached. Yeah.
yeah, we get caught up on what to do in life and not who we are and how we want to show up in life a lot of the
Right.
times. And like you were saying, that's what we associate our self-worth with, right?
Mhm.
And we also think, and I think that society does this too, but other people also associate like other people's self-worth and other people's worth, sorry, with the achievements that they've done. It's like, oh, this person did this in their life, and this person did this, and this person's doing this. But if you break it down, it's like, well, how important is that versus, this person is a certain way. Like, oh, this person is such a kind person. This person is really generous. Like, oh, Chris is such a loving guy and he's always sharing everything and all of his positive energy with the world. Like you
Mhm.
know, it's so much more powerful, and those are the things that people remember ultimately, right? And I'm sure there's some quote that I'm thinking of. It's like I don't even know what the quote is, but something along the lines of essentially people won't remember what you do, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
Um, and that speaks volumes. It really does, because it's not about what you do in life, it's about who you are always, right? That's the foundation, that's the base. Um, and to piggyback off of that, I have a question now for both of you. What is one like tool or strategy or thing or framework that, from both of you that can help someone get closer to figuring out more about who they are, the same way you were able to do?
That's a
I'd love to hear that from both of you.
Yeah, well, I think just as a before getting into a specific one, which I do have one that really started the change for me. Um, I would highly, highly, highly again recommend Dr. K stuff because he has a full framework on everything. So just look up any video on like anything, any need that you have, especially for parents who, because he has tailored a lot of his stuff to parents now, and in that book, and a lot of his content is about how when we because he was a psychiatrist, and he found that with most of his patients, the things that were mental disorders, quote unquote, were things that came from trauma, from parents, from family life, from growing up, and are just became learned behaviors. And going into my tool that really started the change and made it so that I went from being someone that was anxious depressed, from all of these things, to being someone that was content with life and just like living it good. Was when I decided that I was going to stop blaming my parents, the school system, the whatever, for all of my problems. And not just stop it, but also blame them for the good things that came from it, because there are always good things that come from quote unquote bad things. Like there really is no even good and bad. And it's up to you to decide what is good and bad. And so I talked about earlier, like the inputs and then versus the outputs. And those kids saying that like, oh, that's so gay. When I was giving so much to them, I could have taken that in a way of like, well, screw this if they're going to be saying that. And yet in reality, I was just taking this as an opportunity for me to be able to show them that like it doesn't mean anything if you're gay or not. You're just a person. And that allowed me to let go of all of the BS that I was telling myself and all of the expectations I would have of other people, of society, of all these things. And now I get to decide if something happens, if there's an event that happens in my life, or if there's an event that happens in society, if there's if the Starbucks lady forgets my name or whatever it is, it's like such a small thing, or they don't treat me with the utmost respect. I can choose to be offended by that. I can choose to take that personally. I can choose to react in a way that makes me angry, in a way that makes me sad, in a way that makes me like whatever. Or I can choose to be like, well, they might just be having a bad day. And I can choose to say that, well, I'm grateful now for my mental fortitude and being able to interpret things in a positive way. And I'm gonna blame my parents for, I think I talked about this last time, for my ability to read microfacial expressions. I'm gonna blame the school system for giving me such a great motivation to fix something.
Yeah.
Because it is so broken. And now that's something for me to have mission towards. And that blaming effectively had started the whole path on my continual improvement journey and being able to make it so that I went from that kid that was super anxious, super depressed, super loving problems, to someone that now focuses on solutions, and is so much lighter and happier and just enjoying life because of it.
Oh, beautiful.
Awesome.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah.
Nick,
Nick,
what
what's
about
your
you?
tool
All right, my
strategy?
tool strategy. There's several, but the main one that I've found has been most helpful with people is this one, and it's mostly with guys. The bigger guy, the less they know themselves, oftentimes if they feel lost.
Saying that
So
from a bigger guy, because you're how
yes,
tall again?
I'm 6'5".
Yeah.
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 So yeah, lots of expectations on you from being that big person and everything. So, we live our lives in our heads a lot, thinking about things and listening to that voice in our head. And oftentimes people have emotions come up and they try to cling on to certain emotions and associate certain good emotions with certain things that happen, and bad emotions with certain things that happen. And they run away from the bad things and try to avoid the situations that cause the bad emotions and try to manufacture the things that cause the good emotions. And oftentimes, what happens is we end up stuck in our head in this huge cycle. And guys in particular uh, are raised to think, again, not intentionally, that they're meant to be tough and protect. And yes, a huge thing about being a masculine guy is about being able to protect. But somewhere along the way, it was picked up that it is weak to feel your emotions, emotional, and to, so what we've done is we've ran away from the things that make us feel bad and acknowledge and love the things that make us feel good. We are I mean, like what we're doing is we're avoiding part of ourselves. We're not acknowledging part of ourselves. And so not only is in reality running from your emotions a much more cowardice thing to do than it is brave when you really think about it. There's been plenty of guys out there that won't face their emotions, and I tell them to be brave and face your emotions, and then they go, okay, it makes sense. I'm going to do that, and that's what they want. They want to be this brave, strong guy, and their whole life they've been running from their emotions because, oh, that's being a man.
Mm-hmm.
It's the opposite. It's very ironic. So what we're doing is we're paying attention to half of our brain, the logical part, and we're shutting out the other half of our brain, the emotional part. You can't pick and choose the emotions that you feel. When you try to feel only the good, positive emotions and numb out the negative ones and avoid the negative ones, I mean, what happens? Are you really capable of doing that? Or do all emotions just kind of numb out? 9 times out of 10, everybody that I've ever talked to, all the emotions numb. So we begin to know this logical part of ourself where the amygdala lives, which is fear, which is very interesting. And we don't know the other half of ourselves, our emotions. And it is a very big part of ourselves. It's not just emotions, because when you look at brain scans, something happens. The emotional part of your brain ignites before the logical part. It's a very big part of yourself. It's not, emotions aren't just a byproduct. It's much more than that. So what I would recommend is realizing that there are no good or bad emotions. There are just pleasant emotions and unpleasant emotions, and they're all helpful, and they're all trying to tell you something. And only when you listen to what all of them have to say will they calm down. It's just like a little kid. If you ignore them, they're going to scream more and more. And a lot of your emotions will come from pain and trauma from when you were a kid, from your inner child. So what I would recommend is think about your emotional home, right? Like it's a house, okay? And the house has a porch, and all these emotions, they come and they knock on the door and they try to get in the door. And you have a bouncer at the door. And the bouncer says, oh, you're a good emotion, you can come in. Oh, you're a bad emotion, you have to stay outside. And when you feel, I'm sure nobody feels like this. When you feel numb to the world, and then you're laying there completely numb, and then you burst out crying and don't know why, or when you start to feel something and you start to cry and be overwhelmed with emotions, and then in the blink of an eye, it goes away and you forgot what you were crying about, things like this, which is very common. It's called being emotionally flooded. Your porch is flooded with quote unquote bad emotions that you have tried to keep out. The bouncer says, no, keep walking. You don't come in here. The emotion doesn't leave. It stays on your porch forever until the porch gets too full and they blow in through the door and overpower just overwhelm the bouncer, right? So you get these random bursts of emotion. You don't know where they're coming from because you have no external reference to it, because you've been basing your whole emotional home on external circumstances instead of looking inward, like Chris is saying, and taking appropriate meaning from things. So what I did, and what I would recommend people to do, is sit there, especially if you're emotionally flooded, and just feel and see how many emotions you can feel. Go right to the painful ones, or right where the pain is, and notice if you can assign words to what it feels like. Shame, guilt, whatever. And oftentimes you can't, and that's okay. Just keep feeling it. And at least for me, I could begin to feel it. And when I did, it disappeared. I completely retracted. Your brain will grow neurons. It's incredible. It will grow neurons to create different pathways and different patterns that is safest for you. So your brain will go, oh, you're feeling something negative. This happens too often. I'm just going to grow a neuron that makes you completely divert around that. So I literally would sit there and feel bad about something that happened. I couldn't remember what would happen, but the second I would feel it, it would disappear. And
Interesting.
and I would go, damn it, I I need to let this out. Keep doing it, keep feeling it. Um, and the more emotions you feel, and it may be a whole lot because you haven't done this in a while and your porch is pretty full, uh, but keep doing it and take as much time as you need because this will help you for the rest of your life. Uh, and as you let the emotions come in, feel them fully, be brave, feel them fully, let all your emotions out in whatever way you feel like is correct without judgment for yourself. And once they say what they need to say, and you understand it and you take that positive lesson from it, because there is a positive lesson from every emotion, uh, then it will relax and go away and be on its way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you kind of get through all of the emotions that have stacked up on your porch, it will be easier in the future because then it's fluid. You're not stacking anymore.
Okay.
And then on the flip side of that, you're not only resisting negative emotions, but you may have been holding positive emotions hostage, right? Um, let them go. They will come back.
Hmm.
And yeah.
Wow.
Love that.
Impactful. That's interesting.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Well, thank you so much for the value you've brought for this discussion. I mean, so much value, I think, for parents and for anybody, actually. I mean, it's a way to live. I love the way that you guys are living. I what you've taken from the trauma and the patterns and all of that and swirled it around and messed with it and came out on the other side now where you're helping other people. In fact, can you tell us, so where could anyone find you, or what would you like us to put out there for the world so that you
Sure.
can do your work?
Sure. For now, everything you can find me on mostly Instagram, and that'll be my personal, which is my last name, first name. So Dabao Chris, and it's Dabao Chris. And we'll be starting a community soon for young adults called Best Year Yet, BYY. And intentional about the wording with best year yet, not best year ever, because you don't want your best year ever to be the best year ever. It's the best year yet.
Yeah,
And
love that.
this year for us and for me has definitely been my best year yet, and I want to help other people do the same thing. And that's where I plan to do that.
Well, look forward to that. Okay.
Yeah. And for me, there's lots of things in the works. But right now, um, I do have a personal Instagram, Nicholas Orchard, orchard like an apple tree. It's right now it's private. I am making a uh, one for my company, but my coaching company is named Rise, because you're rising to your true self, right? It's
Mhm.
the idea you rise and shine, right? Like you're waking up and all that. A lot of play on words there, but I'll share the website with you guys.
Okay.
I'll send you a link.
We'll put all that in the show notes,
Perfect.
everything.
Yeah.
Yep. And the
Yeah,
book by Dr. K.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. We'll link everything in the description. Thank you once again, Chris and Nick, for opening up, sharing, being vulnerable, and just for your incredible insights and everything that you've shared today and last week. It's been amazing. So thank you so much. Yeah, feel free to like, comment if you have any questions, share this with whoever you think might benefit from it, whether that's parents, teenagers, you name it.
I think it
Um,
would be a good thing to share with, if you know of someone who's struggling with coming out, or just, the emotions. I think this would be a really great thing to share with them because they're not alone,
Yeah.
yeah,
right? And it's good for them to know that they're not alone,
for sure.
and for their parents. to know what to do.
Yep.
It's all very fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
All
Alrighty.
right.
Any last words, anyone?
Thank you
No?
guys very much. This is
Yeah.
very fun.
Yes, thank you for being on.
It's
And
been a
let's
pleasure.
go. Let's go. I love your new idea to help young adults, and we're all on a similar path, and it's just so beautiful, and we're gonna change the world, no doubt.
Woohoo.
Almost.
Okay.
Looking
All
forward
right.
to it. Feel free to check everyone out. All their links and everything are gonna be in the description. And yeah, we'll see you all next week with another guest, and we look forward
Mhm.
to it.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Peace.
Thank you guys. Bye.